Hi everyone, my name is Claire. I have an older sister who's always made me feel inferior, dumb, and with a lot of flaws. She and I are very different from each other, and maybe that's why I thought that since I wasn't like her, I was worse. Have you ever had something like this? If so, can you tell me how you handled the situation? My sister's name is Christina. She is smart, beautiful, and always knew what she wanted. As my father used to say, he has a daughter who has managed to fulfill all her parents' dreams and be a reason to be proud, he said of her. Christina was doing great in school. Moreover, becoming a little older, she started working part-time at a children's developmental center and earning her first money. 3 years later, she was hired as a full-time employee. Oh, my parents were almost bursting with pride. Meanwhile, I stood in the shadows and clapped with ill-concealed envy. Here, if you had studied as hard as your sister, you wouldn't be working as a waitress now. You'd be a valuable employee like her. Yes, I'm no match for her. Well, it's always so in families. One smart and one beautiful. Christina is smart and beautiful. Oh, come on, there's a lot of ugly in this family. Who knows, you may still get ahead. They always said so, but I held on. I had one dream, but I was always afraid to tell anyone about it because I thought that people would laugh. I had a speech impediment. I stuttered, but I watched so fondly as teachers gave their lectures. I even took paid online courses on diction, but still I stuttered, so I worked where speech was least needed. And then one day, my sister was invited to a lecture in the city center. She had to give only one lecture for good money. Of course, it went perfectly. I came to carry her study materials as an assistant. Chris was in a hurry to get to the car, and I was carrying all these boxes. Chris, help me out. And you're gonna what? I can't carry heavy things. I might strain myself. I got so mad that the boxes fell down the stairs. My sister ran to her car. Stop! I yelled at her, but she said she had to go. Take a cab, she yelled. Some guy came over, determined to help me. I said with a stammer, sorry. He just smiled and then asked where he could carry it all. Myself, I said, and grabbed everything. He was cute, which made me stutter more than usual. The next day, Chris was invited to a young faculty party. It was a cultural and business meeting. I knew only great minds would be there, and I asked to accompany her, and she only let me go because I said I would clean her room for a month. Don't go anywhere or talk to anyone, she told me. I don't want you to embarrass me, Chris said. Yeah, I hated hearing that. After all these years, I still wasn't used to being humiliated by my own family. I went there all dressed up, but my beauty was nothing compared to my sister's. Everyone there was socializing and getting to know each other, and all I could do was eat snacks. An hour later, Chris told me to help one of her coworkers bring boxes of supplies from the car. I went in silence, dragging the heavy boxes again, tripped, stepping out of the elevator, and that guy came up to me again. This time I'll get them where they need to go, he said. He was cute. His name was Ed. We had a nice chat on the way. He didn't pay any attention to my speech defect. Oh, is this yours? A notebook of my notes fell out of my purse. It's mine, I said. Wait, are you a teacher? You have wonderfully written lectures. I'm sorry I saw them. No, you. I'm off. What? I used to be a plumber. Ed, what a pleasant surprise. My sister knew him. Ed greeted her, and she said he was the director of the same educational center she worked at a couple of years ago. Chris took him away from me almost immediately, and I decided to just drive home. In the parking lot, Ed found me again. I barely caught up with you. Here's my card. Please call me, he said. Why? From the looks of it, you'd like to work as a teacher? You have great content about economics. It's not boring, and it's about boring stuff. I like it, and as for the stuttering, I know how to help you. I thought about it for a long time, but I couldn't decide. Meanwhile, my sister came home with champagne. She had been invited to work at one of the major centers. Our parents congratulated her and rejoiced. Well, at least one daughter has achieved something. Yeah, well, maybe in 2 years Claire will be a manager. Their words hurt me. I ran into my room and cried. Why did they treat me this way? What had I done to deserve this? Am I that stupid and defective? In anger, I threw my notebook, and a business card with Ed's number fell out. Well, I've got nothing to lose, right? It's worth the risk. Otherwise, I'll be a waitress for the rest of my life. I've been waiting for your call, Ed said. The next day, we started working together. At first, I was worried, stuttering, but he suddenly gave me an earpiece in one ear and said, "Imagine you're just singing. You know the lyrics like anyone else, and you don't have an audience in front of you, but a void." I held my breath, gathered myself, and exhaled. So, what is leasing? It is possible to tell you in a long and boring way that it is a special form of lease relations, and the object of the course is those economic units, which are leasing relations in their activities. But that's not what we came here for, right? I'll tell you in a nutshell about everything. Ready? I didn't notice my own speech becoming so perfect. After 3 months at work, I was more confident, no longer paying attention to what Christine or my parents were saying. I just studied and believed in my own success, and Ed helped me with that. We bonded a lot during that time. My stutter disappeared, and no one at home even noticed. I heard you and Ed hang out a lot. What? You know, sis, he's way out of your league. You can't handle him? You got a lot of nerve. What, do you think you're a lecturer now? Excuse me? I found your notes. Not bad, but with your defects, you should be a waitress. Oh, and stay away from Ed. I keep him busy. Then I got a text from Ed saying that there was a lecture for high school students tonight, and then he sent me a picture. My name was on the list of lecturers. At first, I freaked out and started stuttering again, and then I said to myself, it's now or never. Christina went too, but she didn't know I was going to be there. When I got up behind the podium, she just freaked out. Excuse me, young lady, can I get a coffee? You're a waitress, right? The kids in the audience laughed out loud. Someone even said, she brings me a milkshake all the time. I cried and wanted to run away, but then Ed got behind the podium. Wait, guys, so according to you, it's not us that define our profession. It's the profession that defines us? What if I don't like being a teacher? The hall fell silent. The guys started looking at me, and I performed brilliantly. Ed immediately handed me a bouquet of flowers, and I could not believe that my dream had come true. Christina emerged out of the crowd with my mom and dad. I expected their congratulations, but instead my mom said, you tricked us. You quit your job at the cafe? Who's going to pay our mortgage? And my father said that he never expected me to be so brazen. Christina came up to me then and said I'd never be like her. And I don't want to be like you. Everybody wants to be like me. I don't want to, Christina, and I never wanted to be. Christina grabbed the bouquet of flowers out of my hand and slapped me across the face with them. I wanted to say something back to her, but I stuttered again. This was seen by the students, who began to be indignant. Like, how was I going to give a paid lecture if I couldn't even answer my sister without defects? Go. I wanted to leave, but Ed stopped me. He looked at all the kids, at my family, and said that he had never met a more talented teacher than me, and that I was good, and that if the fact that my family didn't get me was a flaw, then there might be more than one of us. I couldn't hold back my tears. Christina and my parents left the hall, and Ed hugged me. What happened next? I moved out of my family's house, started building my career and even my personal life. My stuttering hasn't come back yet, and all that's left of my communication with my family is angry messages about being an ungrateful daughter and sister. But I think I'll get over that somehow. Do you agree with me?
Hi, everyone. My name is Annie, and I have a twin sister, Annie. Have you ever seen twins? More often than not, they are similar to each other, and they are confused, but with my sister Annie, everything is different. We are not that similar to each other, and we are actually completely different. Now you will understand why. While you sit down, watch, do not forget to like the video, write comments under the video, and subscribe to the channel. We were born, and it became a big holiday for the family. Dad and Mom were looking forward to their 2 daughters. We were given names and we grew up. My mother told me that as a child, she always tried to buy us the same clothes, to pay the same attention to each of us. While we were young, there really was no difference. The changes began in the transition age. That's when the differences and conflicts between Annie and me began. I always noticed that she didn't like me. Annie took most of the sweets, toys, and if she liked my toy more, although we were given the same thing, she broke mine. She is 10 minutes younger than me and always reproached me with this. I often complained to my mother about my sister, but my mother only asked me not to swear, and that was all. The worst thing was at night, we were put to sleep in the same room, and every night Annie scared me, threw toys at my face, slammed the window sharply, once even cut off my hair. But the most interesting thing is that she managed to get out of most of it, almost always. My childhood fears and complexes developed thanks to my sister. The stories about the friendly sisters seemed fabulous. And then we grew up, and my sister's hatred grew stronger. At school, I did well. I was an excellent student, won competitions and Olympiads, which cannot be said about my sister. For some reason, she was a terrible student, and I always did her homework for her. The teacher set us down separately so as not to confuse us, and my sister often pretended to be me in order to get a good grade for her homework. But over time, the teacher learned to distinguish between my handwriting and Annie's manners. When we were 14 years old, I began to gain weight noticeably, which cannot be said about my sister. I don't know why it happened, but I was very worried about it. The only way out was to eat stress food, and so I did every day. After a couple of years, I was already too fat, so much so that I wore the same clothes every day. The other clothes didn't suit me, stupidly. Annie rejoiced in my disappointments and tears. She often bought me dresses, pants, and blouses to spite me, and tried them on in front of me, and I looked enviously at her flat stomach. I threw all my strength into my studies, so I was a completely excellent student, and Annie was a beautiful 2-year student. Every day I woke up with a feeling of disgust. I was disgusted to see myself in the mirror, to wear the same thing, and yet there was no support from the outside. While I was buried in textbooks, eating in front of books, my sister was building a life, making friends, and even managed to have some kind of relationship with a guy. I saw her from the window when he brought her home. Annie went into her room, took off her raincoat, and began to talk about what a good time she had. She spoke with a special sense of pleasure about things or people that I didn't have. In the summer, after the end of the school year, I decided to go to the gym. Those were the hardest months of my life. Only those who have lost weight will truly understand how difficult it is to work on your body, how difficult it is to be on a diet, not allowing yourself to eat anything you want as you did before. I cried in the hall. I wanted to give up 1,000,000 times, to leave. I was angry at myself, at my nature, and even at my mother. Why did you give birth to me like this? But my mother always said that she did not give birth to me like this, that I was the same as Annie, but then I began to eat. I would come home tired and out of sorts, and my sister would go on living the life that I could have had. In return for the failures in sports, I made up for it with my brain. I was able to find interesting intellectual quizzes in which I participated and won money. They might be small, but they were enough to pay for the gym and buy separate diet food. I went there all summer, without missing a single training session. And you know what the most offensive thing was? I did not lose weight by a gram, not by a centimeter. It was just awful. I came home and sat in the corner of my room and cried my eyes out. It seemed to me that the universe itself was against me living happily. In response to my tears, Annie just smiled. She was acting really weird that night. At first, she laughed hysterically, and then she went into the kitchen and drank a martini. My parents were not at home at the time, and it was the first time I saw my sister drinking alcohol. I calmed down. Her behavior was frightening. "Are you drinking?" I asked her, but she could barely speak, and then she would cry. "That's how it happens. I have a perfect figure and he still left me. What else did he need?" she said and wept bitterly. At this moment, I wanted to comfort her. Despite our complicated relationship, I still loved her. When I hugged her, Annie started laughing hysterically. "You? Are you comforting me? I'm the one who should be comforting you. I don't need your support. It's easy for you to do it. You've always been better than me at everything. Our parents love you more just because you're smarter. You study well. Every now and then, they give me you as an example." I was taken aback, asked what she was saying, but Annie was furious. "What? Surprised? What else was I supposed to do? I couldn't let you be more beautiful than me," she screamed. Then my hands began to shake, and I didn't know what it all meant. From the drunken delirium, I was able to make out that my sister gave me some supplements every day to make me fat. She did it every day, and finally, they worked. That's why sports and diets didn't help me. I ruined your life, but it didn't make mine any better, my sister said again and burst into tears. At that moment, I wanted to hit her, curse her, and in general, I didn't want to see her again. I went to my room and didn't speak to my sister for 2 weeks. She didn't say anything at first, but then she started apologizing, but I was too angry. Then my sister told my mother about everything, for which she received a lot of punishment. Well, then I was taken to the hospital, where I underwent a course of treatment purification from drugs. 6 months have passed since then. I lost a lot of weight, but not completely. There's still a little left. On our birthday, she asked me to forgive her 100 times, and then she made a speech. She said that she didn't deserve a sister like me, that envy blinded her and she almost killed her twin. Annie cried bitterly, and in the end, I forgave her. Since then, our relationship has improved. Annie now helps me dress stylishly, introduces me to friends, and takes me everywhere with her. Would you forgive her if you were in my place?